Good, buddy. This is Martin John. No worries about the internet today. I made sure I got my hotspot on and everything. All is well, so we shouldn't be breaking up at all today. Welcome to the Tao of the Day. This is Martin John, and we are talking about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BCE, so it's pretty old. It's been in the consciousness of mankind for quite some time. And I don't want to focus, and this show doesn't focus on, the writing of it or when it was written or who it was written by and all that kind of stuff. Although, yes, it's reported that Lao Tzu wrote it, and, there's lots of stories about who he was and all of that sort of stuff. And that's all fine and good. But we have to recognize that the Tao isn't something that was just written and discovered at some point. It had been spoken about. It had been in the circulation of mankind for quite some time, maybe even millennia before it was ever written down. So it's important to recognize that there is what we look at here as truth, right? And that's what we look at when we say, what is Tao? Well, Tao is truth. It is beyond the temporary and forever, as it says. It is beyond even mere understanding. It isn't one direction. It is balance. It is dark and light. It is good and bad. It is all things. And we on this show, because the Tao consists of 81 chapters, we look at those chapters individually as picking a number, as an oracle. So I ask you to pick a number between 1 and 81, or I can do a random number for you, and we will read that Tao together. And before we get into picking a number, I usually like to ask you what's going on with you, what's happening in your life, and just little things to get a baseline so that when we pick a number, we have something to springboard off of, something to allow us the space to talk about this certain chapter. So I don't know if I have any topics to address today. I've been very still for the last couple of days because the mosaic that I've been working on needs a little bit more time with the lead artist, because the lead artist needs to do some very intricate things, and those take a long time. It's a lot easier to fill in the side of a building than it is to do fancy line work and faces and other things like that. So the assistants are taking time out, right? We're just taking time away. And so, there's this balance now. Well, I can be still, and that's great. The idea that I can be still and be at home and check on my house, check on my land, check on those things around me, and I can spend some time just being quiet, because when I'm in the studio, there's talking and music all the time. So there is that. There is this, I've been doing this thing where it's I do something and then I sit, and then I do something and then I sit. And so I don't have a whole lot going on. But it's a really nice kind of balance right now. Danita, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Nixon? I got you?
Well.
What's that?
Said I'm doing okay this morning. How are you?
Oh, good. I'm very well, thank you. Have you? I don't believe we've spoken before.
No,
No?
yesterday, and I didn't know It said tap, so I just tapped it. I didn't know you were gonna talk to me live. So you
Well,
keep
that's
talking and I'll keep listening.
okay. Well, I can take you down if that's something that you would like. If you want to come
Yeah,
back
I
up,
didn't.
if you want to come back up, you feel free. Welcome to Noom Vibe. First off, Danita. So Noom Vibe is an audio aspect of the Noom app. And what we do here is there are plenty of coaches and other individuals like myself who will do live programs. My live program starts at 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Eastern. And it goes for about an hour, usually. Sometimes it goes for a little bit longer, depending on how many people want to join. And if I have people joining and chatting with me. And what I would do is I would ask you, like, hey, what's going on with you? How are you doing? You said you were fine. That's wonderful. It could be as general or specific as you want. And we look at the Tao Te Ching. Now, the Tao Te Ching is an ancient Chinese text. It was written about 600 BC. And it consists of 81 chapters. These 81 chapters have all sorts of different kinds of messages on how to live a more reasonable life. What I mean by live a reasonable life is living a life that we're not asking others to change. We're not asking other things to change. We're not telling other people that they're doing anything wrong. We're not telling people how to be or what to be or where to put their energy and time. We're accepting that they know what's best for them. And because we know that they know what's best for them, we're not trying to direct them. We're not trying to tell nature, tell people that they don't know their own nature, and tell nature that it doesn't know its own nature. Like when we don't want it to rain. Well, if it's going to rain, it needs to rain, and we accept that. If somebody's being a jerk right now, well, we'll let them be a jerk. We don't have to succumb to their jerkiness, right? We don't have to be upset by them being a jerk. They can just go ahead and be a jerk. It's not gonna hurt us. They're just being a jerk. Now, there may be instances in which you feel like maybe someone is doing something to make your life harder. Now, when that happens, we have to really manage the idea of how much of a victim do we want to be? And in the Tao, it says, well, you're not a victim. If something is coming up that's making you feel like a victim, then there's something you have to look at. There's something that you have to do to understand yourself. And as the Tao sort of expresses it, your life is about your experiences and the experiences that you're having. Not about what other people are doing. Because you can't really dictate what other people are doing. You can't really predict what other people are going to do. And so what ends up happening is you have this experience of them doing something, right? So if someone does something to sabotage your getting a job or getting into a relationship or other things like that, you can have the experience of being blocked, right? You can have the experience of being sabotaged. And what I always say, and in the Tao, we find this said in different ways. Look at your relationship to those things. If you were to look at your relationship to sabotage, if that is what you express it to be, remember, what is your experience of this? When you recognize your experience, you can trace it back. And as the Tao would say, you trace it back to its mother. You trace it back to its root. This experience you're having is the child of some choice. This experience you're having is the child of some understanding, the child of some other experience or frame of reference that you've built in your life. So you have a frame of reference. And that frame of reference will yield certain experiences. Frame of reference of who you are, frame of reference of your identity, frame of reference of, how the world treats you or how you treat the world. And so when we look at what is my experience, we're not looking at what did I experience happen? What is my experience of what happened? Because everybody's experience is going to be slightly different, right? So if you are looking out at the world and trying to be like other people, why? Like, what is the experience you're having when you watch that, when you see that, when you start to emulate that? What are you doing? Right? Like, and it's not a bad thing to do that. It's what the world wants of us. However, when we can, and this is why at the end of every show I say keep recovering yourself, is because all of these things are things that we may be living under the influence of. Right? We're born and we live under the influence of our parents, and then we live under the influence of the economic system and the education system, and we live under the influence of our peers, and we live under the influence of our partners, and we live under the influence of all sorts of things. And every time we live under the influence of something, every time we get under the influence of a thing, of a person, of a group, we end up finding ourselves giving up a little bit of ourselves in order to align with that. Laura, how are you today?
Street. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. You sound very serious today. Is everything okay?
I had to stop the car and get out and walk so I don't fall asleep.
My dear.
I'll get back in a second. It's all right. Just thought I would come on and say hi, and
yeah.
Apparently even if I stop the GPS, the background noise is still gonna be. It's kind of hard to get away from background noise.
We take it all with it's all fine. It's all fine.
Okay.
You do not have to think about it on another moment.
All right. I promise I won't. I mean, not that I won't think about it, but that I won't mention it.
Yeah.
That's a start anyway.
Yeah, that's a start.
But, I'm just wanting to say hi and good morning, and it's good to listen to things like you just said about just let people do what they want, because we're just gonna think they know better, and we don't have to tell them what to do. And so I particularly was considering helpful when you were talking about your experience as a student, and I like when people share with me how they perceived high school teachers, middle school, anything related to that, teaching, learning. So
how are your classes going right now?
They're going well. These are some of the better behaved kids I've ever had, but it comes with the part where they're quiet and uninvolved, and they don't seem to be open to the idea of being engaged. Seems like they're not used to it, and I'm working on it. It's probably going to take some time. Nobody changed the world and the teaching and the learning for the better in 3 weeks of school plus 2 days. And just walking so I don't fall asleep. Thank you. Somebody was asking me, they think it's weird that a woman in a dress comes this place where they're fixing cars, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, and so people are nice in the area. It's more of a country zone that I'm used to. So it's close. What's that expression? Tight communities. They're caring, and I think I'm pretty weird because everywhere I go, people know each other, but they don't know who I am, and they're nice. It's just they're super nice. It's just they treat me like I'm very different, and I understand why it's not a problem, but it's an interesting learning experience for me. And anyway, yeah, the kids are doing better. Many of them are starting to open up, and so I see progress. I just have to be focused on the good parts, the positive stuff, and that's honestly difficult. It's so much easier, comes more natural to think about what's not going the way I want it to go. But
it's easy to judge ourselves. It's easy to be like, oh, well, this is, and it takes so much to be able to, because the judgment of yourself is actually going to make it harder for you to reach those kids that are harder to reach.
Yes. And when I know that, go ahead.
Well, when you can be nice to yourself, you can see opportunities. Whereas when you judge yourself, you close yourself off to some of the hints and tricks and things that may be presenting themselves simply because you're judging yourself and saying, I'm not getting through, because you very well may be getting through. It just might not, like the Tao, in one of the verses, the Tao says, progress doesn't always seem to advance. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're making progress even though you seem to not be advancing at that moment.
That's right. Yeah, I know it's in my mind, but, in my heart, I guess it takes a while to let it sink.
Right.
Because I feel like I am making a difference, considering, the short time I've been in this community that's new to me. But, and I know I can never reach everybody. That's why it's so good that we have plenty of teachers, that some can reach some kids and others can reach others. I don't know why I'm thinking that I want to and want to reach, if not everybody, at least as many as possible. But it's all right. I mean, it's like I said, it's a huge learning experience for me too, because that's what I do, and that's why I'm listening to what you have to say, because I want to learn these things so it'll be easier to let go of the things that I've learned in the past, where I didn't know any other good reasons for doing much of anything other than fear of people. It's, some Asian cultures, but also in Romanian culture, they didn't know how to motivate kids to do what they need to do, so they just use shame, embarrassment, and authoritarian dictatorial ways. So,
do you have an older sibling?
I do. Yeah. I have one sibling, a sister, who is 7 years older.
Okay.
And
so this makes a lot of sense. I want to just kind of, like, how I talk about frame of reference?
Right.
Yeah. So when you were a child, you had an older sibling, and being a second born is an interesting sort of position. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because, and I can hear that you're a second born in how you talk about things, right? Because I'm looking at the idea that you're in a new community and you're seen as strange. And my guess is that you were different from your older sister. And you were probably seen as strange. They probably said, you're weird.
I seem to be different. It seems to be in a good way. I haven't had any problems. And because I've been somewhat open and trying to smile and greet everybody and be nice and friendly,
I agree.
They received me very well. If I have done that, which comes natural to me, maybe it would have been strange in a bad way,
Yes, no, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's the way that you describe it. And when you describe it as strange or weird or whatever, that's harder. Like, and so this is a frame of reference. This is a frame of reference that you carry that you've had since you were a child. Now, strange and weird does not necessarily mean bad. It just means that when people see you, they might not be able to relate. And when you have a frame of reference that says it's hard for people to relate to you, you are actually creating a reality through your perception that is saying it's hard for people to relate to me, but when they do, they are going to open up. Yeah. And my guess is many experiences that you've had in your life have been difficult at first, and then it is your effort and your continued persistence that has caused other people to understand things, maybe about themselves, maybe about life, maybe about school, maybe even about you. Right. But it is because you put in that extra effort. Now, if you didn't have to put in that extra effort, then you wouldn't be strange. You'd be normal, right? But it is that extra effort. But the only reason the extra effort is necessary, in my belief and in how Tao sort of sees things, is because you have a frame of reference that says you're strange. And if people understood right away, then you would lose that identity of being strange, even if strange is a good thing. There is no good and bad, but there is this concept in your mind that I'm strange. And so the work that it's taking to get to these new kids in your class may be happening, but you're unable to see it, because if you were to see how easy it was for those kids to understand you, you would lose in 5.5 miles, turn right onto Red Bank Road. You would lose that identity of being strange, of being the strange one, of being the weird one. And there's a lot banking on that. There's a lot of your identity that is holding on to that, which, it's the second born thing. I'm a second born, so I understand this identity thing really strongly, because, as a second born, we get to witness not only our parents and our relationship with our parents, which is what our older sibling had to deal with, but we get to witness a relationship with our parents individually, together, and individually and together between our parents and our sibling and us. So we get to experience twice as many relationships, which means we get to experience twice as many options in terms of choices of how to act and how to be. And because those aren't only funneled into a single style, that's right, we're different. And when it's just us and our older sibling, and it will be just us and our older sibling for at least a year, we identify as the strange one, the odd one, the one that doesn't really understand the world in this singular way.
Well, my sister used to be rather abusive to me, but when I got older, I realized, I was sort of a burden to her, even though she was the one who said, when she was about 6, she was asking the parents, well, everybody has a sister, and I don't have a sister, so I can play with my sister. But I don't think a 6-year-old would know exactly what a baby sister would mean. That it would be just it wouldn't be just a doll that you play with. It's just a crying baby. And so anyway, she would slap me and beat me around and call me names and cow and this and that. And the one that stayed with me forever, and one of the reasons why I'm working in therapy about this, and Moon Vibe helps also, especially with the part of self-love, self-worth with Kristen Brown. She's great about that. She helped so many of us. And just the word lazy, that my sister would call me lazy because she's like obsessed with cleaning, which she got from my mom. And I was still a little kid, so she would ask me to do stuff, and I wouldn't. I guess I wanted to play, or I wouldn't understand why I had to do this. Though many times I remember doing stuff, like she was asking me, to dust off the furniture or something, and I would do it. And but it seemed like she was never happy, and I don't think she thought, hey, she didn't have any teaching skills. Worse, she doesn't even have any now, and she's like, let's see, she's about 56 or something, and so her son has been traumatized too, my nephew. But my nephew and I, we have been like just a wonderful relationship, and we kind of helped each other survive our abusive families. And he's 25 now, and we just have such a special communication, a special relationship, and we've been essential to each other. But we laugh so hard when we repeat jokingly the things that our families say, because they say the same things, and we just laugh. We are at the point where we can just make fun of the abuse we've gone through, and how, I mean, sometimes it still hurts, but the way we do it.
Okay, you dropped off. I'd love for you to come back up. The 15 minutes was up if you can. And it can be helpful to process it in a way that's not traumatic.
I do apologize. I just wanted to get to the point where I was trying to say that one of the names she called me was lazy, and that's kind of stayed with me until the day. And even though the way my expression that I'm going to repeat is in my mind, I know that I'm not, but in my heart, sometimes that still like hurts. Like, heaven forbid somebody called me lazy nowadays, because oh my gosh, that would be the end of the world, and other irrational thoughts like that. So I've worked against it for many years, but I still kill myself working. Like, I try to do more self-care and rest, and but that perfectionism.
Turn right onto Red Bank Road.
That perfectionism and those high expectations from my own self. I've learned not to have high expectations from the others.
In 3.7 miles, turn left onto Cassie Road.
I'm almost there, so hopefully there's the light.
Don't even worry about it, dear.
I said I wasn't going to talk about it anymore. I was just trying to turn it off because, anyway, I'm almost there, so I know the way now. But just that lazy part has affected me the strongest out of everything. I was able to overcome many of the problems that I had because of my sister's abuse, but and some of it from my mom too. But my mom was nicer, more gentle, more loving. My sister still seems so selfish, and my mom and sister, they hardly ever got out of that community where we grew up, and so they didn't have a lot of experience that enabled them to see things differently. And
mature in a different way.
Yes, but me, I went just so far away from home as soon as I left, so as soon as I could. So when I turned 17, I went to college far away, still in the country. And then I never went back to live in that community where I grew up. And many of my friends went to work in other countries, in Europe, some of them in other places, but really there's not many that I know of that came so far all the way to the United States, across the Atlantic and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my mom, after so many years, I've been living here since 2007, she's still crying sometimes. He went so far away. And she's glad that she can see me on the internet, on video camera, and we can talk, but it's still difficult for her, and she's having a hard time after all these years. That anyway, so she's concerned, but I'm happy here. I mean, definitely happier than there. And my husband is American and needs the care from the VA, and we don't have a VA, so it's not like you can just move there. And so at any rate, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is I had the opportunity to have different experiences, live differently, and that has changed my mindset. And I'm trying to use this growth mindset where there's no such thing as a failure. There's no such thing as lazy. It's just I am what I am, and just doing the best that I can, and trying to stay open-minded, and receive the lessons that I actually do want to learn. So that's it.
Well, before you go anywhere, I want to get a number from you. And I would love to, and I'll just keep talking about this, and you don't have to stay with me. I know you got your day to get to.
Yeah, I probably got 3 more minutes, but before I have to hit the building, or 4. But I could pick maybe number 73.
73. Okay.
And I listen to the recording. If I don't have a chance to listen now, yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, well, wonderful. I'm gonna go ahead and read number 73, and I'll bring this around to some things that I'm hearing and what you're saying, and first off, congratulations on coming all the way to the United States and getting married and all of the things that you've accomplished in your life. And I think that a lot of that, this idea of being the odd one, this idea of being the second born, this idea of like having to get away from all of that, like that all makes sense. That all is, if you didn't think differently than your family, you'd still be there. And you'd still be having to take little bits of abuse. And the lazy thing, the carrying the lazy thing is going to be very, very hard. I carry that too because my dad always called me lazy. I'm not. I'm working all the time, but and it took a long time, and part of that is why I had addiction problems and all of this other stuff, but I really do understand what you're going through, and there are some things that you are able to embrace, and some things that you're able to see as good things, and eventually those things that you're doing to protect yourself can turn on you. Those could be good things now, but we don't ever really want to look at something as purely good. Like, we always want to make sure that we're keeping an open mind and saying things like, well, this is good for now, but these things can change.
Yes. Like food and getting addicted to sugar and stuff was a way to deal with what I didn't know how to deal with at the time, the trauma, but now it's given me diabetes, so I'm working as hard as I can to reverse diabetes and do the lifestyle changes and the workouts and all. But what you mean.
And all of that, like the food addiction or the food like pacifying and all of those things, those could very well be because it's tough as a second born to have really high self-esteem because especially in the backgrounds that, like, some of the things that you and I have equally experienced, you have someone that you look up to that doesn't respect you. And then you feel like you're not respectable. And then if the older sibling gets more love from the parent, what ends up happening is we feel like we're not worthy of love. And so we bury ourselves in addiction and other things. So.
Yeah, she always got cool clothes and things that I also wanted, but she was the one who was supposed to be getting married first, I guess. And
and so you got what she didn't want anymore.
Exactly. And by the time I didn't really want it anymore. I always
That's right. But you
handouts
had to take it.
from her, and among my cousins, I was also one of the younger ones, and I was living on hand me outs, or how that expression is.
Hand me downs. Yeah.
I got to college. I was like 19, trying to buy a pair of pajamas, and I didn't even know there were different sizes. So
yeah.
I
Things
bought
like
something.
that are.
I bought something, and then I realized, well, it's kind of tight. Well,
I see.
at 19, I learned
difficult.
where I should have bought in a bigger size.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, that's right. You live and learn.
I live and learn.
That's right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read 73, and we'll talk again.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So number 73 is entitled "Nothing Falls Through." Now, we're going to look at this from the aspect of, maybe being second born. Maybe Laura's like looking at her students and looking at her community, kind of seeing her as strange or weird, even though those aren't bad things. Those are actually things that Laura and myself have embraced and found like real beauty in the oddness, in real beauty in us choosing to be different than others. Sometimes that has gotten in my way because I wanted to be different so much that I became a contrarian. And that was just someone who went contrary to things that I'm experiencing in life simply because it is contrary. Not because it is... not because it's the right way or what I think is the right way of doing things, but it is contrary to what other people think. And because I had this identity of being different, I would embrace that contrarian attitude. So this one is entitled "Nothing Falls Through." Now, "Nothing Falls Through" is an interesting one because it talks about a net that everything is being held, and nothing falls through, and the meshes are wide. So what I'm going to just preface this with is when we talk about the meshes being wide, there's lots of opportunity, lots of difference. There can be, between one person and the next, there can be a lot of difference. You could be strange, you could be odd compared to another person, but there is a normalcy in that for you. And you are not going to fall through. You are not going to not be loved, as I was talking about with Laura. The idea of us as children, we're strange. Our older siblings align more graciously or align more evenly with what our parents want because they're under the influence of our parents. Our older sibling is directly under the influence of our parents because that's the only relationship that they got to witness. And so they aligned with it so much easier. We got to witness more options and more relationships. And so we're the strange ones. We're the strange ones because we're not like our older siblings or like either of our parents really. And so even though we are sort of like the support in the household, not the head of household, but the supportive household, that's usually tends to be what secondborns are more emulating. It is interesting that we're in that state because it's about how we've observed it, not about how it actually is. And so we're taking a lot of liberties, and that's what makes us a little bit more on the strange, odd, or weird side. And if that becomes an identity that we hold on to, we could feel left behind at times. For Laura, she had to leave the country. For myself, I moved out, before I even turned 18. So it was about getting away. I didn't leave the Chicagoland area, but I may at some point. Not because I'm running away from anything, but because I'm, because that's where my life could take me. Okay, so I'm going to read this and we'll see how this all relates back. There are men who love feeling, and to feel they kill. There are men who love feeling, and to do so remain calm. Who's to say which will experience more turmoil? There is purpose in walking with death as there is in walking with life. The inner workings of Tao can never be understood. It makes no commands, yet all things come on their own accord. It never acts, but all things act on its behalf. It is empty, yet within it lies all things and their master plans. Tao is a net that holds all things together, connected. Its mesh is wide, but it holds so well nothing falls through. When we look at this, what I see really clearly is it makes no command. So we're all connected through Tao, and it is making no commands. So if you love to feel, you can kill. And if you love to feel, you can remain calm. And it doesn't matter to Tao. Tao, your master plan is within Tao anyway. And so your older sibling your older sibling who never left Romania, who is, very tidy or clean and does what her mother says and all of that kind of stuff. This is her plan. For her to put you down and for her to call you lazy, for her to poke fun at you, for her to do all of those things was part of her master plan. Now, you having those experiences was also part of your master plan. Tao is not making any commands on you to be hurt by that or to heal from that. It's not making you move towards Tao, yet all things come on their own accord. You are going to take responsibility for that when you're ready. Take responsibility for your experience of that. Tao never acts, but all things act on its behalf. So by you working with a psychologist, by you working on Noom to better your mindset, to better your diet, to better yourself, and to stop judging yourself, and to challenge yourself from here to there. All of those sorts of things. Melissa, I will send you this chapter. It's not going to talk directly about I can send you the recording of this. Talking about second born is like I'm a big proponent of birth order and experience. So Nothing Falls Through really just talks about this idea that you and your sibling are going to have master plans, and those master plans are going to express themselves differently, and as they express themselves, you are still following Tao, even if it doesn't look like the way your sibling is going to do it. And this also has to do with all of the children in your class. They're going to come to this as well, because the mesh is wide, because the options of how to act are so, like, you can do so many things, but it holds so well nothing falls through. You'll always be held by Tao. You're never going to be lost. The idea that you might say, I'm not on my path, that's impossible. You're always on your path, and you're always doing what needs to be done. So no need to judge it. How you doing, Julie?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm enjoying the path, apparently.
That's right.
I'm a bit of fun. I liked what you said about kind of being aware of where you are in a family, as in siblings. From my experience, I've gathered this idea that the eldest is the manager. Just below, they take this role on of family manager, making sure that they're in contact with all other members of the family. They're the protector and like the mini parent almost.
Well, biologically, the firstborn is
the
kind
tester
of
kid.
geared to take over the family.
Yes, they're also the tester kid, obviously, like I've said to you before.
They're the what?
The tester kid.
Oh, well...
They're the kid you have until you have your kids. The middle kid, right, and this is just by observation, all right, the middle kid seems to kind of gain somewhere. For the start, they're not the first to do anything, and then they're also not the last to do anything, so they're kind of in the middle. And when they're in the middle, they can either be unnoticed or they can be very balanced. I always find that middle children, as they get older, they become very balanced in their viewpoints. They're very observational, you know, and they learn. If they keep quiet, they won't get noticed. And not being noticed isn't necessarily a bad thing. The youngest, which I'm coming to now, is me. I'm the youngest child, and we're kind of seen as the last of the tribe. So the youngest for the longest is the cutest. You know, they get a lot of praise, the youngest kid. They get away with a lot of stuff as well because all has been tried and tested by previous siblings. So, yeah, there's a real learning about where you are in that kind of family dynamic and what it offers you. And it is good. A lot of it is good stuff. No matter where you are in that, you gain a lot of information about that kind of place that you are. And you get to be glad that you're not, say, the oldest or the middle kid. And if you're the middle kid, you're glad you're not the oldest and the youngest. You know, you get to be really comfortable about your path, your space, your kind of journey, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So, and, you know, you do get, I mean, my sister, I was talking to Kristen Brown yesterday about this very thing. My sister would criticize me quite often. And I had to, instead of accepting the criticism and feeling less than I am, I had to look at where and why that was coming. And the need to control can be born from the feeling of not being in control. That's where the balance is. That's where the balance comes from. Everything is born to something else. You know, we get to just observe it. We don't have to take it all on. It's not for us. It's not, you know, a written law. It's fluid. So we get to kind of balance that out and then allow that to be what it is for the purpose that it was and, you know, not even attached to it if you don't want to. But, yeah, it's definitely something I've learned from the position where I'm in. The middle sister, she's awesome. Just thought I'd let you know.
It's, you know, it's always, birth order is a really kind of important thing. And, there's no getting around it. I mean, even if, you know, I mean, I've talked.
Uphold it, you see. Other people uphold this position in your family.
Well, I mean, even so, you know, birth order is an interesting thing for a lot of reasons, and there are, you know, ways that you are supposed to be in terms of quote unquote, you know, like if you as a child are positioned to exit first, and you are going to, like, let's say there's an older child and then there's a twin scenario, and then you're positioned to exit first, but they do a C-section and remove the child that should exit second first.
I've experienced that. You are talking an experience I have not personally had. My children have had. My son.
So what ends up happening?
Yeah.
So there is a deep feeling of being out of your position in the child who was supposed to exit first.
Interesting that.
And
That's
there is a feeling often of deep confusion throughout life, and the inability to like they will get attention, but there's often, and depending on how this ends up processing for those individuals, there's often a feeling for the child who got removed first, there's often a feeling of what's it called? Entitlement. To a lot. And so there's a lot. So it's not just, and a lot of this has to, what's that?
Describing my son.
So there's
life.
there is quite a bit of difficultness when you don't get to own your position.
He robbed his sister of the position of being the middle child.
See, there is, he is forever out of sorts.
Yes, he is.
And his sister, right, like his twin,
yes.
who was removed second, however, positioned to remove first, is always trying to catch up, and is always doing everything that she can to catch up, because she will never get that position back, and she is always trying to win it back.
Yes. so beautifully described. If you could have my twins in front of you, describe them so well, they'd be shocked.
Well, it's not. Well, that's the thing. Like, this is why frame of reference is so important. As soon as they were born, they created a frame of reference. Yeah. That frame of reference is now telling them about themselves and their life, and they don't even know it's happening because there were no words to describe it when they were in utero. They didn't have words, and even though they now have words to describe it, what they have overly become logical in life, because that's the way our society is, and they cannot describe these things.
I kind of explained to them the birth cheating thing. I have told them, look, Jaleesa was breech. And so her head was too big to fit through my pelvis. So that's her own fault for having a big head. And my son, he was lying transverse. So as I went into labor, he was crushing my spine. So it was imperative that this birth happened the way it did. Otherwise, we would have all perished. We would have all died.
No, it's not. It's like this is their. So remember.
But it's good, though, because they were all sitting in the positions for the whole time in vitro.
Right. So remember pre-karmic buffet, right? Pre-karmic buffet is you're piling up all these things you know nothing about. And as you're piling them up, you are going to have to eat it. You're going to have to eat this. You're going to have to find the deliciousness in all of this. And the only way that your twins were going to experience the meals that they laid out for themselves was to have this experience. So it's not that it's wrong. It is their work to overcome. It's not wrong that they had this experience.
It's interesting, and they both really relish it. They enjoy the spectacular of it when I describe it to them. And, you know, after, as you said, the positions that they are in, that's so descriptive of who they are as adults.
Right. Now, if any of that, if they are not comfortable with any of that, or if they become the victim of any of that and all of that sort of stuff, like, it's really important that they recognize where the roots of these things are, because the root of their struggle, if they have struggles with wanting to catch up, like your daughter, or having struggles of entitlement, or what's it called, like when you imposter syndrome for your son, right? Like things like that. Like those things are going to get in their way if they don't do the work they need to do and the only reason that they have to do that work is because, well, one, they accepted the task of doing this work through pre-karmic buffet, if we look at it that way. And now they have to recognize and strip themselves of the rules that they initially, that were initially built, the frames of reference that were initially built through their birth. And they're not going to remember that, and it's nonverbal. And so they could sit there and talk about it in therapy for a long time, or they can really start to identify where those things show up in their lives and remind themselves that, wait, I was robbed of my birth order. Or, and you might be like, yeah, but it was only 30 seconds. But no, that's a huge, like, 30 seconds for something that does not know how to tell time at all is a lifetime, is literally a lifetime. Like the entire life of
he wasn't ready. He told me. We've had some fantastic conversations about the pre-karmic. They said they were in a queue. My children both said this to me. Jalisa said, you were in a queue and I picked you as my parent. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have you as my guardian on this journey. And my son said, he said, I was just looking at other things and I was a bit distracted. And when it came to, you know, the point of going into this body, he said, I just went where she went. I just said, I'll go the same place as her. Which is my son all over, and he's still like that now.
Yeah. So and it's tough. It's a tough role to you know, have to endure a lifetime of feeling like you're behind.
He's the one who has the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, of course he does.
Yeah.
Because he's second born, but he's not. He wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah. And Jalisa is the one that is always thriving and wants to be seen as thriving. As doing
because
well.
she'll never be able to get that birth order back.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's absolutely astounded me. I'm so glad I mentioned it.
Yeah. Birth order is a big deal. I mean, and because it's biological.
Yeah.
Like there are reasons that we're born in the way that we're born, and how we turn out because we're born that way.
Yeah, I agree. Can I pick a number before I go?
Yeah.
Can I have it number 81, please, Martin John?
Oh, 81. Well, going all the way to the end. Yes, and if you want to come back up and let's chat about that, you can. If you don't have the time, no big deal. I'll go into it. You do. Good. So this one is Blossoming Leader. True words may not sound comforting, yet comfort those they are meant for. However, comforting words are never true. Connected to source, there is no desire to prove. Desire to prove only exposes separation from source. The master's possessions are not part of the manifestation. Giving away her possessions, she only receives more. Tao blesses everyone in this way. When this blessing can be received, domination and power will yield, while all people will blossom as leaders. You know, as we talk about your two twins,
my little rascals who are now 32.
you know, it's interesting because no matter what path each of them take, because they're taking parallel paths, they were born at the same time, and, you know, they have their shit that they have to deal with.
They are absolute chalk and cheese, though. Absolutely so different in personality and everything. When they come together, the one thing that they have is humour.
Yeah.
They laugh at the world when they're together. They laugh at everything. They bring joy. And yet separately, they're so different. You know, in their kind of, in the way that they live their life, the things that they enjoy, they're like miles apart. Very interesting. And they are actually miles apart as well. One lives down in the south coast and the other one's on my boat.
No.
That's which one's which.
Your son's on your boat.
Oh, he is, yes. And I pray every day. Believe me. Yeah.
You know, and you know, we look at this, and this is where, you know, connected to source, there is no desire to prove. Desire to prove only exposes separation from source. Whether this is Laura, who was on earlier, talking about her experience as second born, and her experience talking to the people that she's teaching, and all of this, you know, there is a desire to prove. There's a desire to prove that you're doing a good job. There's a desire to prove you're not lazy. There's a desire to prove, you know, that you're capable. And then with your twins, there's a desire to prove that I'm worthy, right, for your daughter, because your daughter, the right to be the first birthed. And I don't know, is she the second born? She your second?
We've got Claire, obviously, with Millie.
Yeah, Claire.
So you know my family pretty much, because we are good pals. So you've got Claire, she's got the three girls, Sophie, Millie and Brooke. Then you've got Tom, who is with his partner Jade, living on my boat. And then you have Jaleesa, who is a social whatever it is, social media influencer. I always told her she was going to be famous. And kind of in a way she is.
That's good. So Jaleesa, right, like with all of this to prove, you know, because she was robbed of being second born. She was robbed of that. So she has something to prove, and then she's going out in the world trying to prove it. And this is where it's like, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to prove that I'm worthy of this position.
And also, she was very bossy to her brother as well. She was the instructor. He would play along with the games that she invented. He was a pawn in her world, you know.
Right.
So
and that is what helps. That's what helps the experience of your son to be less than.
Yes.
You know, like, and he wants that experience. It's not a bad thing. You know, it's just he has to have that experience because he took her position.
Yes.
And so he gets to experience, okay, I'm going to do what you want. It's what I want isn't important, Like I am going to, you know, and she's, you know, the quote unquote younger one. And then so there's all of this stuff where she's actually the third and he's the second in reality, but it was supposed to be switched. So she gets different traits and struggles with those different traits and those conflicting messages, and he does as well. And it's through this, and so what we see is true words may not sound comforting. The truth of your birth order may not be comforting, yet it may not be right, but are right for those they are meant for. However, the right thing is never true, because what is this? What is the truth of this situation? Like, that's what we can look at in this 81. This is no longer look at just words, but look at what actually happened.
Yeah.
connected to source, there's no desire to prove that you deserve or don't deserve or are something, because you are this. There was never, like, we, even without words, even before we understand logic, we do see the biological shift that happens within somebody when they are birthed in the quote unquote wrong order, in an order that they were not positioned, because those two had a relationship with each other in the womb.
They did, yes.
And your daughter was more powerful than your son, which is absolutely going to be the case. That's fine. She's going to
Even
exit
in
first.
weight and everything, in weight, in size, everything.
Yeah, he was the runt.
Yeah. Yes, he was. And now he's not a runt. He's a...
Right. But still, like, he is in his mind.
Yeah.
Right. And he is going to be treated as such. And now your daughter, Julissa, wants to make sure she's constantly proving that.
Yeah.
And prove it to the world, not just to you and him and Claire, right? Not just to the family, but to everybody. I got to prove that this is who I am, that this is my position. My position is in front of him.
Yeah.
The master's possessions are not part of the manifestation. Giving away her possessions, she only receives more. So giving away that position, giving away that second, third born conversation, just being like, look, I'm just going to give away. I'm not going to, if they are ever able to let go of that, they will only receive more of who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they will only receive more from the world, from the manifestation. Tao blesses everyone in this way. And this is the thing. When this blessing can be received, when the blessing of not what happened, but what's true can be received. And that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing for a lot of people to be able to understand, because what happened is true, right? I was like, What happened is what happened. What's true for you without that happening, without you looking at that, without you focusing on that? And I understand that they're not focused on it.
No, they're completely unaware. Yeah.
Right. But because they're unaware, it has taken over. And it is being focused on in a way that they're unaware.
Yeah.
And they have to get to a place where they can become where they don't have to, but they will eventually they may never go back all the way to their birth. But, you'll be able to find this same thing in other aspects of their life. You can be, you can say, oh, you know what? I'm always trying to prove myself. Oh, you know what? I always feel like I'm not worthy of where I'm at. And I always feel this and I need this. And it's like it's a cycle. It's always popping up. It's always showing itself in one way or another. And you can take that back all the way to birth and you find it there. And that's where the root is. Now that root was strengthened through experience, but the root is in that. And it's nobody's fault. This is just what you get to experience. And you get to experience that what's supposed to be isn't always what is. Just like, is it supposed to rain? Well, if it does, then it's supposed to. But that's it. It's not about like, well, it wasn't supposed to rain, and so now I can curse the weather. It's like, oh, it's raining, dumbass. It's just like,
just rain. Hello,
just let it rain. You were the third born, but I was supposed to be the second. Well, if you were, then you would have been.
Yeah.
So, you don't have anything to prove to anybody, but I'm going to be famous. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. It's like, okay, good. But anything that you're trying to prove is you The desire to prove only exposes separation from source. You are now trying to control everything outside of you.
Yourself, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Domination. Yeah. And when this blessing can be received, when we can learn that lesson, domination and power will yield while all people will blossom as leaders.
Absolutely.
And
all
that's,
people will be themselves.
Right.
There will be no struggle. Be content and blissful. Really.
And we can just be, and there is no supposed to be, and there is no truth, and there's no right way to go about it. But you are who you are, and you're constantly shedding the supposeds.
Yeah, I like that. I like shedding the shoulds and the musts.
Yeah,
and the supposed tos. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Martin John. Again, you've been amazing. I just really appreciate you. You're an awesome guy, and I'm glad you know my family so well.
It's a pleasure. Send them all big hugs from me.
I will. I spoke to Millie the other day, and this is what Millie said. She's doing all right. She's, what's she now? She's got to be coming up 14. She's playing football for Stratford upon Avon team.
Nice.
She has coached and assisted and guided her little sister, who is now the goalie of Stratford upon Avon team. And they go to Aston Villa quite a lot to play too.
Nice.
They have training days there. They're doing really, really well. And this is what she said to me. She said, "When are you coming up?" I said, "I'm coming up soon." She said, "I haven't seen you for 2 years." She's an absolute straight talker, is Millie, middle child. And I said, "I know." And she said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because you make it uncomfortable. Because of the demands you put on me, I can't come at my leisure. I can't join you at my leisure and enjoy just being in your company. There's always a task for me to do. There's always a job. There's always an expectation. There's always, So I said this to her. I thought I should be just, as truthful as I can be. I said, but when I do come, which is in October, I'm going to go and see them. I said, I'll enjoy your company. I'll enjoy your company. It'll be good to see you. And she was happy with it. She was completely content with the fact that I hadn't dressed it up, i.e. in the words of comfort, because they're not true. You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
I didn't give her the words of comfort. I gave her the truth. And then we can work on that. And she was sound. She's absolutely level-headed, lovely, lovely person. Yeah. Which is nice, because I didn't have anything to do with that.
No. That's so good.
But yeah,
she's a good kid.
She is. She's pretty awesome. I like her because she's a woman with few words. Yeah. She observes and she listens. And she doesn't give judgment. So she's doing all right. She's leading from behind, Martin John. She's never forgotten that. Never forgotten that verse that we read in the car one day. And how old was that? It's 3 years ago, wasn't it? So she would have been about 10, 11. And she sat there.
She was 11, I remember. Yeah.
And what I noticed about it, which was kind of what set me on my path really, was when you were talking, she spaced out. That spacing out. Yeah. Oh! Dog's here.
Well, I don't know what just happened, but I think that a dog... I know there were cats. I didn't know there was a dog. Maybe it had to go out. Well, for those of you who don't know, Millie is Julie's granddaughter, and she came up and picked a number one time. And we had a little conversation before she was going off to her rugby game. Now she's 14, playing football, playing soccer, and enjoying her life. So, well, thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate you guys listening and checking us out. We read 73 with Laura and 81 with Julie. So if you're interested in coming up and chatting with me, I'll be back tomorrow, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern. And this is Martin John. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.